Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. If you are on the East Coast, good morning. If you're joining me here out west, hey, Coach Elise, it's so good to see you. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. Good morning. Wonderful to see you.
Oh,
Glad to be
so
here as
great.
well.
What's that?
I said glad to be here as well. I'm glad. Can you
Oh,
hear
you
me?
might need to turn, I think I might need to turn you up. I need to turn
Yeah.
up my volume, I think.
Yeah. All right. Can you hear me better? Was that
Oh, I
better?
can hear you super great.
Okay.
Absolutely. I
Good.
can hear you great.
Good.
Technology will be our friend. Welcome, everyone. Will you please let us know if you can see and hear Coach Elise and I? Hi, I'm Coach Leanne, and we are coming to you live on Leslie Vernick's public page. And we are so honored to be here today to
hmm
talk about an incredibly important subject. All right.
hmm
Hey, Julie. Hi, Jamie. I see you. Thank you for letting us know you're here. Here you go. This is what we're going to be talking about today. You probably all already know this, but here's where we're going. I can't get through to the other person. What am I supposed to do? No matter who that other person is,
Yeah.
it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating, right? It might be your spouse,
hmm
it might be your toddler,
hmm
it might be your teenager, it might be an in law, a coworker, a friend, that for some reason your lines are getting crossed. You're not connecting. You can't get through to them. They're not understanding you. Who knows what else could be going on? Who knows what else could be going on? It could be your neighbor. It could be
hmm
somebody on the pickleball court for me. Or Elise, share with our listeners, what is your game of choice?
Tennis. Could be on the tennis court. But yeah, we have a wealth of people in our world that we're like, wow, what's the miss? I can't seem. There's a miss. There's a disconnect, or I'm really trying to share with them something and they're not receiving it. That's really tough. No matter kind of how I speak up, how well I do it, how best I think I can communicate, I can't get through to the other person, and that's really really tough stuff. Tough stuff. Yeah. So,
It
but
is.
we are going to discuss what am I supposed to do. So that's going to be a great conversation for us today. One of the things I'd like to kind of see for others, and Leanne, you're really good at kind of rephrasing the question, but what is the frustration for them, and or what maybe have they tried? I'd be kind of curious.
Mm,
I'd be kind
I
of
love
curious.
that,
Yeah,
Elise.
rephrase that. You're welcome to, but I'd be a little curious for them. Like,
Oh, me too.
where are
We
they kind
definitely.
of banging a little bit, for themselves? And so, so that we can begin to see like what is it for them, where that tension is, and they're getting this resistance and they don't know what to do with it. What am I supposed to do with that? Right? So, okay,
Absolutely.
good.
Absolutely. Well, and what does, and I would add to that. I love that question, Elise. And, it's so fun to be here live together because we are going to grow off of each other and
hmm
off of you. We have a pretty amazing community here that join us live. And
hmm
so when you can't get through to the other person, when you
hmm
can't, what does that look like?
hmm
What does that even look like if you're not getting through? Is it
hmm
that you're not communicating? Where do you feel it? What is that like? And where are you, feeling like you're beating your head against the door
hmm hmm
or what? And so I love that. Hey, Janet, Victoria, Susie. Hey, Coach Jen. We're so glad that you're here. You're so glad that you're here as well. Hey, Jamie. So, yeah, I can't get through the other person. So, what am I supposed to do? What have you tried, even?
hmm
What have you tried? We would love to hear from you. What
We'd
have
love
you
to hear
even
that.
tried?
Yeah.
Communication, relationships are everywhere.
hmm
Relationships are everywhere, just like we talked about. They're
hmm
inside of our homes, outside of our homes. They're in our front yards, in our backyards. They're on the pickleball court, the tennis court. They're everywhere.
hmm
And so relationships can be messy.
hmm
Relationships can be messy. And I just want to make a reminder, this is Leslie's public page. So
Right.
whatever you type into the chat may be seen by your tennis partner
Right.
or your teenager. And so just, be thoughtful about what you type into the feed. And so we would love to hear from you. If you were, you know what, maybe Elise, yeah, go ahead.
Leanne, I stepped on without grabbing my glasses. And that is going to handicap me if I can't take 1 second. So I didn't want to duck off the screen without you knowing where I went. I need to grab my glasses as you continue to talk. Thank you.
Oh, please, thanks, Elise, for letting me know. And yes, please grab your glasses. We value your words, your input, and your thoughts, and we want you to be able to connect. But communication and relationships are everywhere. I would love to ask this question as well. How would you all define communication? What is communication? What is the sharing of information? Look like, sound like, taste like? What is it? What is communication? So I'm going to give you just a moment to type into the chat. How would you define communication? All right. If you could define communication, what would it look like? For me, it's a giving and receiving
Mhm.
of information,
Mhm.
relationship, sharing. How would you define communication? What do you think, Elise? How would you define communication?
Yeah, I think one of the sticky points, I think oftentimes with couples, is it is one of the biggest, like, I don't know, complaints. It's like we don't have very good communication, right? And so oftentimes, when I'm listening to couples, if I do some couples work or, kind of even with, coaching work, they'll say, we just can't communicate. And I always have to kind of question that just a little bit. And I said, is that really true? Because I'm actually am understanding you, Leanne, without any problem. And I think that we can hear, someone else. What where communication breaks down is we don't like what they're saying. Okay. And so
Oh,
I think you guys, so often say is like, I think you guys communicate really fine. Like, I'm not having a problem hearing you or understanding you. I just don't like what you're saying. Now what? Right? And so, like, what do I do when I don't like what you just said, or how you said it, or the tone in which you said it, or I'm not, available to take in what you just said, right? I'm bathing the kids and, everything's kind of blowing up in my house at 6 o'clock. I mean, I'm a grandmother, so I'm not bathing the kids right now, but like, this, that bewitching hour, so much is going on, or, we're all tense because of Christmas. And so, just the slightest something, and, all of a sudden communication is frazzled, right? And so oftentimes it's not that we can't communicate, it's either how we're communicating, like how we're giving and receiving information, as you just said, Leanne, right? That giving and receiving information within relationship, even if it's on a tennis court, even if it's on a pickleball court, we're still in relationship on somehow. We all have this community of like-mindedness. We love to play tennis together. How are we sharing that? And listen, I don't know about you. I've played tennis for a lot of years, and I think you've been a pickleball player for a lot of years too, is that we can get unfriendly on the court. Like,
right.
I don't like that you just communicated that the ball was out, like, because I saw it in, right? And so actually hearing someone giving and receiving information absolutely is the initiation to communication, without a shadow of a
Mm,
doubt. But what gets said is what's important, and how
indeed.
the other person on the other side of us receives it, right, belongs to them. But how they take it in, process it through everything of their lens, is where this gets really sticky, right? And so oftentimes, how can I get through? Sometimes the truth is we can't, because of who they are, what they, how their lens of interpretation, their belief system, going on some of your strengths, Lee, and their belief system, their value system. All this communication comes through that lens. And so
Mm.
now we see why communication is really kind of tricky sometimes.
It totally is. It totally is. I love that you brought up all of those high points. So Elise just dropped incredible truth bombs and nuggets as she was sharing just now. What did you just hear her say? I would love to see in the feed.
Mhm.
What was your takeaway on what Elise just shared? I'm looking, Elise, at what our gals are sharing about what communication, how they
Mhm.
would define it. And,
Mhm.
Janet's saying feeling comfortable to share without having someone misunderstand or jump to conclusions.
Mhm.
The sharing of information, says Nicole, emotions and situations, and having the other person receive what is being sold or what is being said. It almost
Mhm.
can be,
Mhm.
there, I might need new glasses. And then without without understanding, there is a lack of communication. Bonnie
Mhm.
says communication is hearing the heart of the other. Communication often needs clarification and not assumption. Ooh, Bonnie, I love that you brought that up. So there are
Mhm.
4 big barriers to quality communication. And
Mhm.
they're inner blocks. It's limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
assumptions, interpretations, and then gnarly inner critic, that gnarly inner critic that we can navigate. So we'll probably touch on some of those inner blocks that can prevent us from hearing another person. All
Mhm.
right. And Nicole is saying safe and reciprocal, honest sharing of ideas without judgment or defense, a willingness to hear and listen. I love that you separated those two, Nicole. Hear and
Mhm.
listen. Consider the
Mhm.
motivation of
Mhm.
growth and health of the relationship, seeking
Mhm.
to understand,
Mhm.
asking questions, being curious, as opposed to, I'll add to that, as opposed to judging. And we're defining healthy communication here, aren't we? And
Right.
sometimes healthy communication isn't always possible. One of
Right.
my most favorite words, Elise, and all of us, when I think of I can't get through to the other person, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
Something that comes up for me a lot is that I am not being cooperative. And
Ooh.
so on the pickleball court or on the tennis court, it's like cooperative play. One of my pickleball coaches used that word with me, used that word with our group a couple of years ago, and it really resonated deep within me.
Mhm.
What is
Mhm.
cooperative play?
Mhm.
So on the pickleball court, it's not slamming the ball right at your feet or your face where you don't even have a prayer of returning it. That's not cooperative play. And oftentimes in communication, we can be slamming our words, we can be shutting the door
Mhm.
to our ears or our hearts, and
Mhm.
we're not letting the other person in. And that is a choice.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is a choice that we make.
Mhm.
And so, at least, before we came live today, we were talking about a couple of big words when it comes to getting through to the other person and what
Mhm.
we're supposed to do. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of,
Mhm.
that word supposed to is like a should. Okay. And, if you've been around long enough around this ministry, we talk about not shoulding on
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, I would love to hear from our participants here today. What do you
Mhm.
think you're supposed to do if you
Mhm.
can't get through to the other person?
Mhm.
What are your limiting beliefs, your assumptions, your interpretations, your inner critic? How is should coming up? What do you
Mhm.
think you need to do? And
So,
Jamie,
Leah,
go
just so I'm
ahead.
clear, those were your 4 building blocks, that limiting beliefs, assumptions, right?
Yeah.
And what was the other word?
Yeah, interpretation.
Interpretation, okay, and then inner critic.
And then
Okay.
that inner critic, and those blocks can keep us. Those are inner blocks. Those are inner blocks.
Mhm.
And so a limiting belief is a belief that you have about the world, another person.
Mhm.
You maybe got it from your culture,
Mhm.
whatever, something that you believe is true. It's a belief that's going to hinder you in some way.
Mhm.
Leslie talks about the train. I don't know if you've ever heard her talk about the limiting belief about a female uterus. This
Mm-mm.
used to be believed. Okay. All right, let's just be real here for a minute. Here's a limiting belief that has been, debunked over time, but there was this belief that if a woman was riding on a train or in a car or something like that and it was going too fast, her uterus would explode at a certain speed.
Mm.
Okay, so then that prevented women from getting on the train or getting in a car or whatever, race car, whatever, right? So that is one limiting belief. Another one is that you couldn't run a mile that you couldn't run a mile in less than 4 minutes.
Mm,
Oh,
mm,
well, now we already know that that's been busted out of the water,
mhm, mhm,
right? We already know because back in 19, what was it, like 54,
mhm,
Roger Bannister, he kicked that belief out. And so, what might be a belief that you are holding
mhm,
that you're supposed to do when you can't get through to the other person? What do you think, Elise?
mhm. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm just kind of, some of the limiting beliefs is that I have to get through, right?
Mm,
Or that I'll never be able to get through.
there you go. I'll never be able to. Yeah.
Right. Always or never. That I always have to get through. He has to hear me, right? And so, and you and I spoke of this just a little bit last night, um, around the word need, right? Like, what
Mm,
happens to me when I feel like I have to get through to him? Do I need that for me to be okay? And so, I think sometimes in this limiting belief, and I'd like to go back to that top word, is that we can limit ourselves that it has to be, I have no other choices. I have no other means. I have to get through him or else. Right? Now, when we begin to kind of say, you know what, I want to get through to him. I would love to get through to him. It would be helpful. It would be a game changer. It would look different in our relationship if I got through to him. And not only did I get through to him, but he received it, he accepted it, and we had a different outlook or a different outcome. But I think it can be a limiting belief and really eliminate our choices when we say there's only one way, and it's for him to get it. Now we've
absolutely.
limited ourselves to that one track and that one track only.
Elise, I love that you brought that up. You eat a limiting belief, and somebody asked the difference between a limiting belief and reality. And so we get to decide, the stories that we're going to be telling ourselves over in our head. And if I am always believing that communication is hard or this person is not ever going to hear me,
Mhm,
if that's how I'm believing, I'm
mhm.
not going to put forth a lot of creativity or effort
Yes.
in order to have a conversation or even see what my options are, what opportunities might there be.
Right.
Getting through to this person is hard work. It might be. It
Mhm,
might be, but might that belief prevent you from even trying? You
mm,
may give up.
mhm,
And then if you like, I really appreciate at least what you said when you shared, if my belief is that I need to get through to that other person in order for me to be okay, in
mhm,
order for me to function, in
mhm.
order for me to feel good about myself or the world around me, I'm giving that person a tremendous amount of power over my well-being and my state. What do you think?
100%. Matter of
I
fact,
love
all your power, right?
it.
Like, I'm powerless unless you get it. Is that true? I hope not. That's really not what, we, as coaches, Leslie Vernick Ministry, anything is about. Is that we are saying, hey, God has gifted me, with gifts and talents. I have my own values, my own beliefs, and
Mhm.
I'd like to bring them forward. Matter of fact, I think that my values, my beliefs, my thoughts, my opinions would bring value to the relationship. But if the person on the other side of us is resistant, is so steeled up that they aren't going to receive it for whatever reason, it belongs to them for whatever reason, can I be okay? Does everything about me, my well-being, my fears, my anxiety, does all that rest on the other person getting it?
Mm.
And when we begin to see, certainly there can be grave consequence. I don't want to deny that in any way. There can be grave consequences if the person on the other side of us doesn't get it. There really can. There can be a lot of harm to a relationship if the person on the other side doesn't get it. And we don't want to minimize that at all. But we also want to bring to the table that we are powerless to make the other person on the other side get it. It
Elise,
belongs.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. There was a pitfall period in my life, Elise, where um, I I tried very hard to get certain people to understand me. And I would over talk, over explain, over discuss. Like I would often say I would talk about it until we got both of us were at the point of nauseum. It was exhausting and it was icky. It was
Mhm,
icky because I thought that it was my job
mhm,
to get somebody else to understand my point of view.
mhm.
And what God has shown me over time that the only person who needs to understand my point of view and where I'm coming from is me.
Right,
Knowing what I believe and why I believe it is
right,
my job. And being able to communicate that in a way that perhaps somebody else could hear me,
right,
that's my work to do too. That's
right.
okay. One way that I learned to not let that belief that they will never get me. And, here's when I think of the word need, I started to play with that word a little bit, Elise, last night. And, I'm such a wordy. And I was thinking of the word need. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, that means it's necessary. That it's
Mm,
necessary that
mhm,
they,
mhm,
right, that they get it. Well,
mhm,
really what it boils down to is I get to look inside myself and explore what that belief is having
mhm,
on me. If I have the
mhm,
belief that it is necessary to
mhm,
get through to that other person, that's going to be impacting me in some very real way.
mhm.
And it's going to prevent me from being the best Leanne I could be. And God calls me up to that. He calls
Right,
me up to that.
right,
And so
right.
anyway, that's one way we can do it is there's a way that we can try to debunk some of those beliefs, just like the uterus exploding or not
Mhm,
running a mile. We can debunk it by looking for evidence and doing a little bit of self reflection.
mhm, mhm,
So, I'm going to take a look over at the feed. It can be so transforming. I can
mhm.
be okay without the other person getting it. Yes, you can, girlfriend.
Yeah,
We can be okay.
yeah.
We can be okay. I love that you shared that. I've been
Mhm.
setting boundaries and I've been learning what I can and can't control through the conquer journey. Yay. Yay, you.
Yay,
Wonderful.
right, yay. Yeah.
My,
So, you want me to
yeah,
answer this? How do I respond to him swearing at me and insisting to fight in front of the kids when I've asked him to stop? Well, that's, one, I'm glad that you've asked him to stop. So you
yes.
spoke up. Will you please stop? I don't want to do this, right? And so, but kind of as almost the subject we're talking about, how do I, what am I supposed to do? How do I get through to the other person? I think you're trying to get through to him to say stop, right? And he's telling you, I don't want to do that. So you don't need him to get it in order for you to take action.
Mm,
So I would invite you to begin to think about the choices that you can do at that moment because he's telling you, he's communicating to you, I hear you. I don't want to do that.
mm,
You've spoken up and good for you. And you've asked him to stop. Good for you. All the right steps, all the right things to do. And he's saying, no, now what? And that's this kind of the second part of our topic today. What am I supposed to do? And so I want you to think about how many choices do I have right now? The choice to stay is one of them. The choice to stay in that conversation and keep begging or pleading or, in this consternation, that is a choice that you have if you want to keep trying. What other
mhm,
choices might you have? And maybe, Leanne, we put this in here. Like, let's
mm.
start offering some other choices for because
Yeah.
I'm not. Um, who was it that said that? The feed's gone up. I don't know. I would love to call you by name. My apologies. If the feed's gone up, I've lost your name. But this is a place that we can begin to offer some, of that, just almost with, others who have experienced that. What did they do at that moment?
Right. I love that, Elise, because we do have choices. And
Yeah.
so if we took the necessary, the need off the table,
Right.
of getting, but then what can we do? We oftentimes, I talk about this a lot, and you do too. We get stuck in the can't. I can't, and we know we can't control another person. And, I'm looking back at the feed, Jamie. Here's the deal. He's swearing at you, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about your choices,
Mm-hmm.
because we do have choices.
Mm-hmm.
You can walk away.
Mm-hmm.
You can grab the kids and get the heck out of there and take a break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can.
Yeah.
Your safety and the safety of your kids, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and
Right.
physically, is super important.
Right.
And so
Very.
sometimes, he's showing you he's not cooperative. Okay, there is no cooperative play going on here. So then what will you do with that information? And,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we can say, believe the behavior. And it's really icky and hard when somebody shows you who they are.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody shows you that they're not willing to open the door
Mm-hmm.
and let you in,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard when we can't get through. So then what will we do? Will we let it deplete us,
Mm-hmm.
or will we use that as information to help us, to help grow us,
Mm-hmm.
to help grow us?
Mm-hmm. Rachel puts out a big thing. It's not. It's actually another question, but I think it's in light of what we're talking about. She says, "What if he waits until we are in the car, right?" And so I'm assuming that you're saying he waits till I'm trapped in this
Ah,
space to unload and start vitriol with me. And in that moment, certainly you can't jump out of the car. There's one of the choices is you can dial 911, right?
that's
Because
right.
there's entrapment there, and that's not okay, right? And so, I mean, we saw the case out in Arizona, was it, or Colorado? That was on the national news.
Yep.
She reached out. Unfortunately, she backed out once the police came, and it ended poorly for her. But they will come. You can call 911 in the car, right? Now, you certainly have to evaluate your safety around that. But you can call. Then there can be some natural consequences. Like I won't ride with you again until I feel absolutely safe that you won't entrap me in the car, right? There's a natural consequence. You may not get out of that situation at that moment. Doesn't mean you can't be freed in future situations. Like you absolutely insist that you will not ride with him until there's some measure of, he won't do that. You understand that he won't do that. And that you have a game plan in the future. He stops at a stoplight and you're safe to get out, right? It's different if you have children in the car. There's a lot of variables. We know that. We understand that. But my hope is that you hear Leanne and I both saying you have choices and you have alternatives. Let's start thinking about them. You don't have to stay in that automobile. You can call the police. You don't have to stay in that room. You can go to another room. One of the things that I like to kind of coach around a little bit is to say that, I don't want you to try to stop them, right? Like I can't stop you from yelling at me right now. But what I can do is this, and I'm going to do that. If you choose to settle down, I'll stay in the car. Or if you choose to settle down, I won't call 911. I'm not threatening you. I'm just saying, you do you. I'm going to need to do me if you continue to do you, right? It's just information. It's not a threat. Like I have to do something else if I'm under threat. I'm not going to do this.
I'm not going to do this.
I'm
And,
not
this
sure what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do this.
right. And knowing what we will do and what we won't do, that's a part of our work to do. Knowing what we will tolerate and what we won't tolerate. I remember when I first started coaching, I made a whole list of tolerations, things that people tolerate in this world that are unhealthy.
Mhm,
I haven't thought about that for a long time, but we
mhm,
can do that. We can tolerate so much that we get to the point of where we are so confused. We don't even know what our choices are. We
mhm,
can't even think,
mhm,
right, of what our choices are, because the stress and the
mhm,
stress hormones are being released in our body. And it
mhm,
prevents us from taking deep breaths and
mhm,
even knowing what our choices are. And,
mhm,
we have an opportunity here in our ministry right now that starts in about 4 weeks.
mhm,
We get to start a group 6-month coaching program. It
mhm,
is called Empowered to Change. If this is resonating with you, I'm looking at this E2C on here, empowered to choose. We can make different choices.
Mm-hmm.
We can change the way we're doing things. And if what we have been sharing on all of our lives, and even today with Coach Elise and I, is resonating with you, and you want to know, you want to get out of that need space and
Mm-hmm.
go into a place of choice,
Mm-hmm.
then we invite you to go to leslievernick.com/change and find out more about our 6-month group coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about choice. We talk a lot about agency and stewardship and speaking up and what to do in certain scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
healthier ways than what we've done in the
Mm-hmm.
past. We've got limited availability in
Mm-hmm.
our groups. They're
Mm-hmm.
filling up super fast. They do every year, but we want to warmly invite you. If you want support
Mm-hmm.
in getting rid of that, I need you to hear me in order for me to be okay. If you're ready to change that mindset and
Right.
let go of those beliefs and assumptions and that inner critic that's
Right.
preventing you from being fully God, who God made you to be,
Right.
then we invite you to click that link.
Right. There's just something that just kind of came up for me that maybe you all, I don't know, maybe you all can resonate, maybe not, but let me just kind of share it just for a second. When you're on the other side of your spouse's, or let's just assume spouse, vitriol, he's kind of got you trapped in the car. What the end of the day, he's trying to make you get it. He wants you to think like you think. Right? And you're over there like, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing it. No, no, I'm not agreeing to that. I'm not gonna, everything in you is resisting, right? So I want you to picture that that's kind of the flip of what we do as well. My hope is not
Mhm.
with that level of energy, vitriol, disgust, et cetera, but the same thing is going on. Right. And in essence, when you're being attacked like that, your husband's saying, I want you to calm me down. You've got to get it. And so that I'm not having to do this in order to get my way. Right. And so wouldn't it be nice if he didn't need you to get it for, what the relationship might look like? What might the relationship look like if you didn't need him to get it? He didn't need you to get it. That you all learn to live in the differences. And I have a little bit of a framework around that as far as like, we're not okay with anything illegal, immoral, unethical, egregious, right? That's not what we're saying, those are out of bounds. But a lot of times it is over the difference, the way someone drives, or they spend a little bit too much money, or they don't spend enough money, or they drink a little bit too much, all kind of issues that there's all kind of differences. And what happens is we can't tolerate the difference. So I need you to get it. When you drink, this happens. Well, I need you to get it when you spend too much money. Ugh, and so what we try to do is we're trying to control the environment a little bit, and sometimes in very good ways. But what happens inside of us is we get very anxious and fearful, and we need someone to get it. You must get it. And so I want you to step back and take a look at yourself. What is going on inside of me that I must have this? And I'm pressing, 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 pressing. What if I didn't have to have that? What if I wanted it? It could be great if I got it, but I didn't have to have it. I didn't need it.
Boom.
Where might I move to? And what might it feel like relationally if that wasn't even happening to me in that same way? Right?
Mhm.
So we can begin to change the dance. May not change the outcome we may want, but we can begin to change the dance when we can step into, I don't need you to get it for me to be okay. The world would be better. It may look different. It may be much more peaceful, healthier, all kind of good things if the other person got it. But I'm going to release that you have to get it for me to be okay.
Mm. Oh, at least I love that so much. And that acceptance of, you are a different person than me. You see things differently than I do. At least at the beginning, you needed to excuse yourself and go grab your glasses
Right.
because you wanted to be able to see clearly. right? You needed support, you needed lenses, and those lenses, impact the way you see the world, the way you read the feed, all of that. All of us have different lenses that we view life through based on all of our experience that we have had up until today. And so knowing who you are as a human being, who God created you to be, and all of your life experiences allow you to see things through your lens. Your kiddos, your
Mhm.
neighbor, your partner on the court, your coworker, everybody has their own set of lenses.
Mhm.
And so some people will not see things the way you do. Are
Mhm.
you okay with that? And that acceptance, I mean, wouldn't it be easy if everybody was just like us? Well, they're not. And that acceptance of you are you and I am me. And
Right.
if we choose to, we can coexist.
Mhm.
We can coexist and be us individually. I don't need to be a carbon copy of you, and you don't
Mhm.
need to be a carbon copy of me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, in the destructive dance, that can get really, explosive when values collide in very real ways. And so,
Mhm.
yeah. And so, when we accept the fact that they may never get it, how will your life be different tomorrow
Mhm.
if you just receive the truth? They
Mhm.
may never understand.
Mhm.
I've got parts of my story that even the closest people to me, Elise, will never get it. They haven't walked in my shoes.
Mm-mm. 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 Yeah.
And that's an expectation that
Right.
I could have that could put an unhealthy expectation on
Right.
somebody else, right? And then conflict increases, the shrapnel or the results of that, the effects
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
me needing that. I
Mhm.
can feel really unhappy and negative all the time. I can
Mhm.
go down that spiral. I can go into fight, freeze, or fawn
Mhm.
in an instant if I need that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
other thing that can happen, and this is something I don't want to do, is I can
Mhm.
get resentful. I can get resentful. What do you think
There's
about
a
that?
red flag right there to speak up.
What's that?
I said, that's your red flag always to speak up or do something different.
Ooh, yeah. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that, Elise? And so we
Yeah.
talked about, what can I do if we don't?
Mhm.
Yeah. How is resentment a red flag?
Yeah. So anytime you feel that, and we, listen, nobody's exempt from that. We all experience it. But that's really a super, kind of an internal red flag, an emotional red flag for you is like when you start feeling that bitterness and resentment, it's time to speak up and say something. Now, again, what we're kind of talking about today is that we may not be able to make a change out there, but it is time for me to say, hey, this isn't okay what's going on. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to get kind of icky, using your words, Lily, and kind of this icky, resentful feeling like, hey,
Yeah.
this isn't fair. And this isn't, whatever it is. Otherwise, if we allow that resentment to just kind of continue to feed and stay with us, it's where it really starts taking root and bitterness comes
Mhm.
in and more anger, bitterness, begins to really take root. So let resentment, when you hear your language or your thoughts, are speaking around that, let that be the warning track that you need to start speaking up or do something different. Like my
Mm.
body is, warning me that this isn't okay, right? How will I take care of myself at this point? Speaking up often is the time, and most of us that's going to mean conflict, and so we kind of like "Ooh," we start stepping back,
Yep.
like we want a day pass away. Let me just speak up and then run away. But that's really the time to speak up. And
Mm.
so, and again, when I say that, let me kind of say that sometimes we've spoken up before and it hadn't mattered. Some of the
Gone
person on
well.
the other side of us doesn't really care. And that's a great disappointment that, again, speaking up is a choice. It's one of the many choices that we have. Removing ourselves is another choice. Doing, thinking of something, like I want us to be, you guys be hearing how much, like speaking up is a choice that I have. Not speaking up is a choice that I have. Do it, what do I want to do different? If I don't want to engage in conflict, which we wouldn't, we don't want you to engage necessarily in conflict, but we don't want you to always be shut down, right? And saying, and avoiding conflict as well. Like sometimes it requires healthy relationships, sometimes really require conflict. Like, how do we work through this? Now, your history may say conflict we can never work through. It just escalates and explodes, and there's so much injury we can't really do it, right? But I don't, as Leanne was saying, is I don't want that to be a limiting belief that you can't do this, right?
Mhm.
If your
Right.
life experience with a certain person has said it never results in a good outcome, kind of check yourself first and then say, I can't, speaking up's not going to work. So I need to go to choice B or choice C or choice, another choice, but if you're not speaking up out of fear, that may be a limiting belief, as Leanne brought up. Is that true? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I love that. And here's the other part of that. And so, talking about assumptions, I brought up those inner blocks. And so I want to make sure that I, touch on just a little bit. But an assumption is believing because something happened in the past, it's going to happen again.
Right.
These are super personal. They're more personal than a limiting belief is. And that is, it could sound like this: my husband will never communicate effectively. That could be an assumption just because it happened in the past. It's going to happen again. My kids are lazy. They're unproductive. Nobody
Mhm.
helps me around here. Maybe it's this one. And this one, we hear this within our ministry as well, is I'm not an inspirational person. I
Mhm.
don't have what it takes
Mhm.
in order to manage my life very well. I can't motivate others. I'm not motivated myself. And so we can believe those assumptions. They can be debilitating. They can be debilitating for us to know that we have choices. I'll never be successful in any relationship.
Mhm. Mhm.
That assumption is huge. So, what are we going to do about those?
Mhm.
What can we
Yeah.
do about those? What choice do we have in that? We can challenge them. And here's the big question: just because it happened in the past, why must it
Mhm.
happen again?
Mhm.
What different choices can you make to set yourself up for success to provide a different scenario? Because
Mhm.
I say this a lot, and I have it sitting right next to me.
Mhm.
Nothing
Right.
changes, nothing changes. Okay, so you can't get through to the other person. What are you supposed to do? Change the
Right.
way that you're showing up with them,
Right.
because it's not going to change if you don't change.
Mhm.
One person can
Mm.
impact and
Mhm.
change a relationship.
Yeah.
And we can change the dance step as we talk about. All right. What other thoughts do you have about assumptions, Elise? Anything?
Well, I thought maybe I might answer this question kind of given the hour. And
Oh my
Leanne, I
goodness,
don't
look
know
at how
if I know.
please do. Please do. Let's
Let
answer
you have
some
some freedom to go forward. I'll need to step off about 2, minutes right before the hour. But Angie asked a question. It's a hard one. And Angie, without I think it's a really big, deep, wide question. And I'm going to answer it a little bit, kind of high level. So if I say I need to go to church and he doesn't allow me, which is a red flag right there, because he doesn't like that church, and that's his prerogative. I follow through, and I follow through. Him accusing me of trying to be the leader of the family if I take the kids cry and I feel like they have to choose sides to decide whether to go with me or stay home. They are hurt and confused and love us both, of course. I'm afraid of damaging them further, so I never follow through. What would you say about what to do for natural consequences boundaries when following through, I guess? I'm not sure what the rest of the sentence is.
Oh,
Um,
will it hurt the kids?
oh, will it?
If I follow through with it, will it hurt the
Mhm,
kids? I see the
mhm.
question now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, if I follow through, will it hurt the kids? Um, I think you have some sense that it will. And so I want you to kind of pay attention to that. But I think the bigger question, I think the bigger thing, because there's no way that any parental relationship doesn't have disagreement. Daddy says you can go, mommy says you can. Mommy says you can, daddy says, you can wear your hair this way, that way. There's no possible path to raise children without two parents saying, I don't want that to happen. It's okay if that happens. Right. And so we can say that most of us, certainly we've had some childhood,
Oh, I
all of
think you
us have
just
had
locked
some.
up, Elise.
Oh,
Hey, if our support staff can, if
Um, I
Let
don't need.
me know. We
Okay,
have
yeah,
had internet issues.
okay. You're slow, Leanne. I
Our
feel.
support staff.
What should we do?
Oh, Elise was mid sentence.
Hmm. My internet looks strong. Somebody give me a signal if they can hear
Oh,
me. Oh, just lost me.
who they are, and you are
Hmm.
in your world. And especially when you've got kiddos involved, you have an opportunity to set some boundaries and to set some boundaries about what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate. And do that when you're not, the temperature already isn't super high in your home and you're not under stress. Plan this conversation. What will
Hmm.
you do? We often talk about that it's a safe, you want to get together, get a safety plan in place
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
those opportunities.
Okay.
All
I
right.
can. So, Leanne, what I hear is that you're freezing up, and I don't know if people can see me. I can't see myself
Mm.
on the show, but everybody keeps saying that they can hear me.
Elise, I
And
can't bring you back up. I'm not
yeah,
sure why.
it's all right. There you are. There I am. There I
There
am.
you are.
Wonderful. Okay. So
Welcome back.
well, thank you.
So glad that you're here.
Yeah. And
I
so,
missed you.
yeah. We can't see you, but we can hear you. And Liam can, you're coming in and out.
It's some
Okay. All right.
challenge.
So I think we're
The Lord
going.
must have something that He really
I
wants
know.
to be
I
saying,
think
and
I
somebody
think
really needs to hear
right.
um,
So,
what
Leanne,
it
I
is
think
we're
the
talking.
picture is frozen, but I think we can hear you. So let me finish up, if I may, a little bit too. I love what you said.
Okay.
Kind of, setting
Well,
some boundaries in a calmer time is also
and
an alternative. But my hope
we're
is that,
both freezing up,
yeah, Lisa's back. Leanne is still frozen. Can hear you both.
buddy.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay, you're both
I'm
back.
not sure if this is
I know we're a little confused. All right, I'm going to keep talking just for a minute. So, what I'd love to say is, like, please step into the fact that this is there are some challenges here, and how you might want to work around if you need to stay home with dad. There, you're not dividing your allegiance. Dad does not want to attend this church. That's okay. Dad doesn't need to attend the church. And maybe kind of negotiating that with them just a little bit, which is absolutely fine. But in a sense that he won't allow you to go. Um, let's my hope is that we can say that he doesn't want you to go, because it sounds like you went anyway. So, unless he's restraining you, which is not okay. Again, the law does not look on that well. It's just his anger doesn't want you to go. And, ladies, we can all get that, how we are contained by anger. All of us, that's a real natural response to that. And I love that you're concerned about your children, no doubt. But how do you want to manage, kind of, in a sense, it's not true. He threw out this, and you're trying to be the leader of the home. I'm not trying to be the leader of the home, right? There's no reason for me to need to be the leader of the home in this situation. But I am trying to attend church. How you want to attend church belongs to you. It's not the way I want to attend church. And that's okay. We can sit in those differences. It's not comfortable. I think both of us would prefer we were attending a church that we both wanted to go, but right now we aren't. It doesn't mean that one's forbidding the other, or it shouldn't mean, I should say, that one's forbidding the other, that we can walk in this difference. What might it mean for the children? Can we discuss that? Otherwise, his discomfort with you going to church is going to trump everything. And one of the things that we really do kind of really initiate in E2C is listening to our feelings, but not letting them be in charge. They can be informants, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. What is this fear informing me of? What is this? You have a fear that your children, that this will mess your children up. How is that informing me? Now, how can my integrity or the best of me move us forward? Otherwise, I'm going to be making decisions out of fear. Probably not our best decision maker. It's necessary at times, but bears after me, I need to be afraid. I need to be running. I don't need to overthink it, right? But this is a situation where you have some chance to think about it, think about what you want to do, think about the choices you want to make, think about how you want to be. And we're not calling you necessarily into resistance, but we are calling you into adulthood, right? That adults have the opportunity and have the agency to attend the church they want to. Can it cause conflict when we're in different relationships? It can. I mean, we're in different religions, want to attend different churches. You know, and overall, in general, I have a very cooperative spouse. But throughout a 40-year marriage, we've had some differences in where we want to attend church. At the end of the day, we really want to be going together. So we are always going to like, there's enough alternatives. We got to keep going at this, right? But that's as Leslie, excuse me, as Leanne mentioned at the very beginning of our talk, this cooperative play. And I think we know and understand, Leanne and I both, all the coaches, definitely Leslie, it's the whole, engine behind her ministry is we know that you're not in cooperative play, right? We know that. And so we are really inviting you into these groups and into these classes to say, can we help equip you to the best possible way that you can begin to stand and say, I'm going to cooperate to the best of my ability. I think that that's my call. We're called to peace, right? But we're not called to be a peace faker.
That's
right. And so this is a moment where there's not going to be the peace that you would want, especially around church. And that's a grief. I mean, that grieves my heart to think that, there's all this tension about attending church. But for him, in essence, to forbid you to attend church, to forbid another adult, I think we want to encourage you to begin to put a big question mark around that. First and foremost about you, and then let the direction be around your children. I think the bigger issue is higher, and then we can talk about the children. You need to be able to be empowered to say, this is really tough, but I'm a grown woman and you're a grown man. How will we manage it from that perspective? Not from I'm going to take leadership. That's a dictatorship. That's not leadership, by the way. And that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, please. Love that. And I missed a huge chunk. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened with my internet.
He just kept saying for me to keep going. So that's why I just jumped on.
I'm so glad you did. I just totally lost internet completely. And so, when we were talking a little bit about that acceptance piece, if that's how he's going to be, what will you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
You can't change him. You can only change you. And, you're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make those adult decisions. Yeah. And nobody should forbid you
right
from going to church.
Right. And Leanne, let me just kind of interject real quick. They can forbid you.
Well, you.
Yes.
They can. Sorry.
Will you allow them to forbid you? Right. You're right. They shouldn't, but they do. Right. Yes. What will we do with that?
Right.
What will we do with that? Right.
So. Thank you, Coach. You caught me. Yes. Our words matter. They can forbid you. We cannot stop them from the words that they choose to use and the thoughts that they choose to think.
Right.
That's on them.
Yeah.
What you will do with that, that's on you. And that is very empowering to know that I can choose differently. I don't need them to approve of me to go to church. I have a choice which church I'm going to go to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what a different mindset.
Mm-hmm. What a different mindset. We're calling you into something hard, though. If that's not your mindset, if you, in essence, haven't gotten to a place where there's this, really this equitability in the relationship, that's going to be a hardship for you. And we know that. And we know that, and this is why we offer the classes.
That's right.
In this 15-to-1 ratio, me or Leanne or Susan, Diana, Jen are all going to lead these classes, right? And we want you to be in these sessions with other women who stand, you're not in the foxhole all by yourself, right? We are in there with you. You have other, soldiers in there with you. And we're going to be able to hear, like, what did you do in this moment, right? We're going to be calling you into processing, the questions that help you apply what Leslie teaches, right? And so there's going to be teaching moments, but there's going to be this great application. What do you do next? We want you to grow and develop and thrive from this, not continue to stay stuck. And in this ping pong of, I can't go to church, I can go to church, I can't go to church, we think that that's a very common, church just happens to be the subject line, but it's nonstop. Can spend money, can't spend money, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, right? And how we learn to step into the agency that God has called us into in this time, in this generation, and how we're to steward that. We are not a group of feminists. We aren't.
That's right.
But we are a group of women that say, hey, I'm listening. I live before one pair of eyes. It's the Lord's. And when I live before those eyes, my husband is in good stay. I will mean no harm. And I will be called to peace in a way that's healthy. I got to get off my pulpit. I started preaching.
No, Elise, there was just so much depth to what you shared, and I really appreciate that. And we have one more question.
Okay.
And I'm so glad that we have a recording. Share this recording. If this has been meaningful and helpful for you, perhaps you know somebody that this might be really helpful for. These conversations, we can't underestimate or say enough how we are so for you. You are not alone in this journey. You're not alone in this journey. And so, another question came in, Elise, and I don't know if you addressed it or not while I got booted off, but it talks about.
I was on the one with Angie with the church.
Perfect. Okay, so we have another question here. It says,
right.
Can you guys, and I know you got to jump off. We're going to wrap up here in just a moment, but can you guys talk about practical ways to stay well when post-traumatic stress disorder from betrayal interferes with consciously accepting the fact that they won't get it? And, I think what I would, Elise, I know you have to jump off.
I don't think that is a big question, and would love to be able to speak of that. I can't speak into it in 2 minutes. And also it's talking about a lot of diagnosis with post-traumatic and everything. So, but we would like to talk about it. And so kind of take it from there, Leanne, maybe a little bit, like, how do we hold this trauma? How do we hold this betrayal? And then what was the last question? That's kind of what the two things she was asking, trauma and betrayal. What was the last part of the question? Maybe I can.
So if we were to rephrase that question just a tad bit, how does trauma and betrayal affect my conscious acceptance that somebody else won't get it? And, one thing I will say in our very limited time that we have here is that when betrayal and trauma impact our lives, it affects our body, mind, soul, spirit, our brains. It's very real. It affects our hormones in ways that will blow your mind. If you know much about neuroscience and the effects of trauma on the body, one thing that I know for sure is that there's a tremendous amount of stress. When stress is inside the body and inside the brain, those what we call catabolic hormones go rampant. Cortisol and adrenaline in the body cause you at the cellular level, your cells, they like get sticky. And your brain, you can't think clearly. Your body, you're not breathing deep. There's so much that happens when we are under stress. Acceptance and awareness can go down on that meter. And so having somebody to walk with you to help keep you aware and alert to the truth of what's going on is crucial,
Mhm.
because sometimes
Mhm.
that stress and betrayal will prevent you. It's almost like a blinder.
Mhm.
It will prevent you from seeing the truth.
Mhm.
And one thing that we're committed to so deeply in this ministry is the truth of what's going on inside of your homes, inside of your hearts,
Yeah.
inside of your families.
Yeah.
We never want to dismiss that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to, pause there, but I know at the hormone level, it
Mhm.
will impact your cells.
Well,
And so you can't see it clearly,
mhm.
right? It's hard to accept then.
Yeah.
But then watching the stories,
Right.
you're telling yourself about that in that space is huge. Go ahead, Elise.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, thank you, Liam, for that explanation. I think that's probably going to be helpful for everyone. And I think kind of in a nutshell is that we kind of know no matter what as you were saying, Leanne, we have a lens that we're looking through. Trauma is going to affect that lens. Betrayal is going to affect that lens. Our body's going to respond to those triggers. And I think on some level, I'm not quite sure if you were wanting them to get your experience and how you are seeing life, or you are trying to enter into their world and see their experience, carrying this, knowing that you're carrying this, consciously knowing that you're carrying this. So I wasn't quite sure which direction. Are you wanting someone to see it, knowing that like they've not experienced trauma or betrayal, and you're trying to get them to understand what it means to you to have experienced trauma and betrayal, or vice versa. And so that's why I was a little kind of paused on the question a little bit. But either direction, I think Leanne really kind of summed it up, is that there's going to be, and truthfully, we all have a lens we're looking through, whatever our life experience has been. Post-traumatic is pretty heightened. Trauma, no doubt. Big events have happened in your life. Sometimes many of us haven't had that big of an event happen in our life that is that impactful on our nervous system. Nonetheless, we're all looking through a lens. Please know that about yourself. Please know that about the person on the other side, that you want them to get it so bad and they're not getting it, is because they really have a lens and a belief system and a value system in which they're seeing things. So my hope is that you heard us say, ladies, that you have choices. Please don't absolutely need them to get it. For you to be the best you can be, step into that and figure out, like, wow, what's going on inside of me that I feel like they must get it? Because if they don't get it, what will that mean? And can I live in that tension? My hope is that you can. Thank you so much for being here. Leanne, you can finish up goodbyes. I do need to step off. It has been a delight, and thank you for all your questions. Take care. Please join us in E2C. We'd love to have you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Elise. It was so good to join you here in this space. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off as well.
Well,
Ladies, we so appreciate the fact that you are here. Your questions matter to us. You matter. And we would love to have you join us at E2C. And so I'm going to sign off for now, and know that you do not need somebody else to get it in order for you to be okay. If that is one takeaway that you get for this, is you can be okay even if somebody doesn't fully understand you. God sees you, He hears you, He feels you, He understands you, and He holds you ever so close. He's got a grip on your life that nobody else can have. Give the Lord that access. Another human being is not safe to have that kind of access to your well being. I look forward to the next time that we're together. I think Coach Elise and I will be back here again. Um, if not her and I, maybe she is by herself. I don't have my calendar in front of me right now, but it has been delightful to be here with you. I look forward to continuing our conversations in the days and weeks to come. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.